This is Flipping the Script podcast, the soon-to-be #1 leadership podcast for purpose-driven leaders and great guest experts who give us a unique insight into what leadership looks like behind the scenes. I'm Shalia Stafford, your host, and I'm committed to helping you lead your challenges using leadership strategies to gain new perspectives, fuel your growth, and transform the way you execute on your success. Welcome back, everyone. It's Shalia here. Have you ever wondered how to excel at what you do? What does it take to lead the complexities of your success through the evolving seasons of your life and your career? I recently read an article by someone named Dr. Richard Blackaby who put this in the perspective of farming. For those of us who live in North America, we're generally familiar with the 4 primary seasons, which is spring, summer, fall, and winter. If you ask a farmer, they would love to continuously be in a harvest season where crops are being produced in abundance, but we know that's impossible. Each season serves its purpose, and without one, the other wouldn't be successful. Patience, tending, and weathering the storms brings growth, but then winter comes and it's time for a period of rest and reflection. Farmers know that to be successful, they must utilize all 4 seasons. As leaders, do we ever get stuck when we feel that we're not in a season of harvest with our accomplishments, or when change is coming or life just becomes quiet? How can we as leaders utilize the evolving seasons of our leadership to lead the complexities of our success and learn to excel at what we do? Get ready. It's time to hear some words of wisdom on self-leadership and the journey of the many seasons from today's guest expert, Dr. David Lee. Dr. Lee is a professor of educational leadership at the University of Southern Mississippi. His experience includes being a teacher, principal, superintendent of schools, and deputy state superintendent of education for the state of Louisiana. He speaks to school systems and businesses all over the world on leadership and motivation. He has over 35 years of experience driving change in organizations and providing the motivation that enables people to be better at what they do. He is the author of 3 books and his latest, Run from the Nuts. David, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your journey and expertise with our purpose-driven leaders.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation today concerning leadership, all the phases of leadership and things that we can get involved with to make us better at what we do.
Oh, how exciting. Well, to kick it off, we have a tradition here on the show. We like to ask our guests a few fire away questions to get to know you a little bit better. Shall we fire away?
Fire away.
Alrighty. What is something that you're curious about right now?
What I'm curious about is how we're going to put leaders in places that's going to make a huge difference in what we do, whether it's organizations, business organizations, school systems. We've got people in place, but a lot of things aren't happening. So I'm very curious on how we're going to train them any differently than they're being trained already, or get them to see a different approach to what they've learned from the past.
What do you understand today about your life that you didn't understand a year ago?
I learned that I can get a lot more done when I use different approaches of working within my professional life and my personal life. I've learned to be a little bit more sympathetic, empathetic, allowing myself to walk in someone else's shoes a little bit rather than just trying to form an opinion quickly. But I've tried to work on that in the past year, and it's had some very positive benefit.
Complete this thought. I wish I had paid more attention when...
I wish I had paid more attention when I was beginning in the leadership field, when I got so much input from some really, really credible people talking about how you lead people, how you get people to buy into your vision and what you're doing. But in the early stages of my career, I felt like that people should assume responsibility if they're working in an organization, that you shouldn't run around and have to motivate them all the time, or at least try to encourage them to get them to do things because they should automatically want to do that. But I was told early in the career that to slow down, be more passionate, this kind of thing. And I did do that, but I wish I had done it a lot earlier.
What is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
The ability to empathize with people, to understand, because everybody you meet is fighting a tough battle, whether they want to admit that or not. Somewhere along the line, they're dealing with things. And every day we go to work, we have to take some of those things with us. And to be a really, really good leader, I feel like that you got to put yourself in their shoes.
If you had to break up your life up to this point into 3 chapters and give each chapter a title, what would those titles be?
Probably the first third of my professional career would be hurry up and get there. I rushed through that, getting my terminal degree and doing all those kinds of things and rushing and rushing. And then in the middle stages, I started utilizing a lot of the things that I had learned in the first third. I started by attending workshop, conference after conference, listening to motivational speakers, listening to leadership speakers, all those kinds of things. And then the middle part I found was probably the most effective because I was now implementing the things that worked. And the latter third, I think now is just kind of enjoying the benefits of the experience I picked up in the first 2/3 that's now enabled me to lead not only students in their professional careers, but to work with other leaders out there through my coaching with them, through chatting with them constantly and speaking across the country. But that's the latter part. So I've kind of learned to use what I've learned in the first 2/3.
If you woke up tomorrow and discovered that everything in life was now free, what is the first thing you would do?
If everything in life was free, first thing, I think, well, let me preface that to say that I'm pretty satisfied with the way things are right now. I realized that we've got to have an inner peace about us to be good at what we do and to lead people, because we can't be just frustrated constantly with ourselves and then expect other people to respond to us accordingly. I'm pretty satisfied with that. But if it was free, I'd probably move and I love where I am, but I would probably move to a weather with a little cooler climate and just enjoy myself a little bit more with that if it was free. But I'll tell you, I've pretty well sunk the full life here of realizing in professional career is kind of I've been able now to kind of implement the things that I've learned all these years, and I've seen that they work. That's the key. I've seen that the things that when you learn from the best, when you read and when you learn from the best, they're telling you some things in there for a reason, and you might not see it at the time, but on down the road, when you deal with enough people, it will pop out and you'll go, that's what they were talking about. That's why I love to read. I love to listen. I love to hear all the current things that's happening in the world of leadership, because I'm fascinated with leadership. I'm fascinated because some people can just take talent from people. They do it effortless. It's just a knack. It's a way they have. I'm looking for a definition of that X factor of that or that knack of being able to do that. I'm always trying to clone that, and unfortunately, you can't. It's just the way people do it. And now I get a chance, especially when people I read about in magazines and books that are doing some really good things. I've gotten a grant or two over the years, so. And working on some research now on what the best do, what it is they do. But unfortunately, in my quest to find what the best do, I see a lot of those who aren't performing at the best, and then I become fascinated with that because I want to know why they're not doing it. But I get to go see them, and I spend the day with them, and I watch them and see how they do. And they're just regular people that have a phenomenal way about them that draws people to them. They just pull you in. I could take, just say, a typical a typical workshop you were doing on leadership, and I could bring in 5 people. No one knew them, bring them in. One of them was a phenomenal leader. The other 4 were sort of mediocre. And we could start a little conversation, and within 1 minute, that entire group could identify the high achiever. They could identify that person. It's just something they have.
That's very interesting. It almost makes me think about, I don't know if you've ever heard about John Gottman from the Gottman Institute.
I've heard, yes.
He's able to predict divorce in couples but with a 94% accuracy rate with spending just 2 to 3 minutes with him, because he's able to identify certain things that pave the path and show whether it's going to be successful or not. And it's almost like in leadership, we have this ability to do the same thing after spending just a few minutes with them and observing their qualities and their characteristics.
Absolutely, you can. And leadership coaches will tell you, I can follow you around for a couple hours in the day, and I can tell you what kind of leader you are. They watch your habits. They watch the way you do things. And this X factor is so strong, so pronounced. Back during the summer, I did a presentation at a place that when it was a school system, and the superintendent of schools came out, and they had this gentleman, elderly gentleman. I'm surprised he was still out cutting the grass and so forth at his age. But he was out there working so hard, and that superintendent told him, he said, "I want to thank you." But you see, all leaders will say that, "I want to thank you. I want to thank you for doing a good job." But there's a difference the way that an outstanding leader says, "I want to thank you for doing an excellent job." There's a difference in the way it's communicated. It's a different look. It's a different feel. And when I saw this superintendent, I was standing right there by him, and he got that guy off that lawnmower, and this guy had a towel around his neck. He was perspiring profusely. And he said, he called his name, and he said, "I want you to know I'm so proud of you." He said, "Thank you so much for making our campus look so good today." He said, "I came by here yesterday, which was Sunday, and he said, I saw you doing some work out here then." He said, that means more to me than anything in the world." And that guy thanked him a million times. We pulled off from that parking lot, and that guy was still standing by that lawnmower as far as he could see us waving. That's an X factor. A lot of people would say, "Thank you for cutting that grass. We really appreciate that." But it didn't mean the same thing as that leader. That leader has that ability to pull it out, and that X factor that I'm always looking for and trying to define it. I know it when I see it, but teaching it is very, very, very difficult. I don't know. It's easy to teach management. It's difficult to teach leadership. You can give them all the right tools to be successful in whatever they do, but some simply can't use them correctly. It's just like if someone tells you, "Can you tell me 5 ways to be a better communicator?" Certainly I can. Everybody can do that. You can teach them that in the content, 5 ways to be a better communicator. But unfortunately, not all of them that hear you teach those same things are going to go out and communicate the same way. It's that knack, like that fella telling that guy, "I can't tell you how much this means to me, the great job that you've done here." And he touched his heart by telling him that. That's what a leader will do. They'll touch your heart so many times, and they connect with you emotionally. And when that happens, when you connect with someone emotionally, and that's hard to teach someone to do that kind of thing. But when I saw that superintendent do that, I knew that guy connected, and he hit his heart when he told him, because you could see the look in that fellow's eyes when he told him that. That's what leaders do. That's the great things that happen out there every day in our organizations. It's easy to tell somebody to do something.
Right. Do you think that part of the problem with teaching leadership too is that most people don't really understand their own self-leadership?
Not at all. I think that's correct. They don't understand that. They don't see the need to lead themselves first. They try to lead other people without leading themselves, and they're trying to lead other people in a different way than they lead themselves. And if there's not some kind of if it's not synchronous out there about what you're saying, is it what you're doing? And people watch that. They watch how you lead yourself, and if they see that you're not marching to the same page you're telling them, that's when it starts to deteriorate.
You mentioned that you love to read and learn from the best. And I know this is probably going to be a hard question because there's so many great resources out there, but what is your number one favorite leadership book that you would highly recommend?
That is a good question. And I go back to the early stages of the little book by Zig Ziglar called See You at the Top. Very simple book, very easy, but I'll tell you, it invigorates you. You've got so many out there, And when you read these books like this, you find that you look for so many things. You're going into the book with unreal expectations. You're looking to find a lot of things to put to use immediately. But I always look for one or two takeaways from every book that has a profound impact on what I do. But I go back, I've again reading them all, but the little book like See You at the Top, probably out of date now. Any of those kind of things. And let me tell you, it's not necessarily a leadership book, but going back to the old book of Dale Carnegie on how to stop worrying and start living. Leaders need to read books like that because you have to put things in your life in day-tight compartments, as he calls them. When you lead people, you can't carry around your mental baggage all the time. You have to be fresh. You have to be optimistic. You can't be boring because people won't respond to you if you're boring. But they just know that you have to have a way about you. But again, I'm hesitant to the names right now. Just doesn't come to the top of my head. But I can tell you those like Ziegler and people like Tony Robbins, and you go through those things. But I've tried to read a broad spectrum of them from every field to see. I can't think of the name of the gentleman who's president of Southern Cal, was it about the contrarian leadership. What a book on talking about your leadership has to be different and how you do things that way. But everything I read has an impact in some way on the way I design my leadership strategies in whether it's teaching or leading other people to do things. But great leaders are always good readers. They're avid readers because you want to know what's going on out there. I know this is a sidebar. I want to say I was writing back from a school system with Zig Ziglar one time, and Zig always talked about sales and this kind of thing, but he was promoting his work about having the right attitude in the school system business. And I was there to speak to educators, but he was speaking to the same educators, but he was coming at them from a different angle. But on the way back to the airport, I asked him, I said, Zig, let me ask you, you speak to educators and you speak to business people. Which of the two groups had you rather speak to? He said, without a doubt, I'd rather speak to business people. He said, because business people, if you can give them one idea they can put to use to make them better at what they do, they're appreciative. He said, educators want you to give them 20 things to make them better today. And if you don't give them a whole list, they are always considering you ineffective. And I thought about that for a long time because if we go into our seminars and our leadership, if you go into them looking for a novel full of ideas, you're probably not going to find them because I can tell you right now, there's not really anything new out there in leadership right now. There's not a new idea, not a new strategy taking place. But what you're finding is new is the way you're approaching the things that are basic to what people do to get other people to move and to go into action.
I love that. So, I want to take this a step further, this taking action part, because a lot of our listeners, they are avid readers. But I think another part of reading is, like you said, learning how to distill one or two action items from it. And then the next step is putting those action items into play and executing on those things. But when we do, things never go as expected, right? We hit some roadblocks, we come to a crossroads, and we try to figure out, well, what do we do now? How would you say you go about putting these one or two action items that you distill into play? And what do you do when you go out and you execute on them, but they don't exactly go how you intended? What do you do next? What's the next part of this?
That's a good idea. And I'll tell you, one thing I do is when I realize, number one, when someone's writing a book, that what they're telling you is a good idea or something, that's based upon probably their best experience with that. And knowing full well when you read it, and if for an example, if it says, go out and make 10 cold calls a day and those kinds of things, you do well, and then you do that, and then that doesn't work exactly like the person in the book said, then you can easily get disenchanted with that. I go into it from the mindset that this does work, but it's going to require from the audience you're dealing with, the organizations you're dealing with. They have a different culture in those organizations. Every organization has its own culture, so it's not necessarily what you read won't fit into it all. So you go into that thing of realizing that this does work, but I'm going to have to tweak it some. And sometimes you go in and it works perfectly. It does just exactly as it said. But if it doesn't, I can't get down on the author of the book, because it does work, but in that particular setting, it does work. And let me tell you when I picked up, and I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I picked up. I was reading in a book, and this guy said that what I do every day. What he was talking about was the more you bring people up, you build them up, the more you're built up. And he said, I just had a little strategy. He said, I every morning when I went to work, I put 10 pennies. He said, you can put 5 pennies, you can put 2. He said, I just put 10 pennies in my left pocket. And he said, during the day, every time I got a chance to build somebody up, to say something good about them, to make them feel more appreciated, I would take one of those pennies out of my left pocket and move it over to my right pocket. And when I read that, I got to thinking, when I first saw it, I said, now that's stupid. Why would you want to change pennies? But, it had power to it. The next day, I found it. Well, it took me 2 days to accumulate 10 pennies, but I finally got 10. I figured that was a good number since he said it. But he made a good statement. He said that the days that he had all 10 pennies moved from one pocket to the next, those were the best days of his career. He said, I was happier, I felt better, and I love my job more than I ever have. And he said, here's the key to this thing, is that after about a week, you'll be so energized by the impact you'll have when you follow that, you don't need to carry the pennies anymore, because you will just want that kind of feeling of helping other people. And I called it 10 pennies leadership, and I tell my students about it all the time. And I started and I did the 10 pennies. I did, and he was absolutely on target. The day you did all 10, now some days you'd have 7 pennies left. You couldn't, not every, but the days that you did get them all out of your pocket, you felt better about that day than any day you had, because it wasn't the work that you did, it's the way you made people feel. And the better you make people feel, the more they respond to you and the harder they'll work for you. Because I can tell you now,
Yep.
to lead people have to like you. Now, you can go under the deal all you want to, say, I don't care whether they like me or not. Yeah, they have to follow you. They're paid. But that doesn't mean they're going to be in there 100%, and they're not going to be giving you that extra. They're not going to be giving you that little extra thing that you're always looking for. They don't have to love you. They don't have to buddy friend I'm talking about. They got to like you.
Right.
And by that I mean they got to respect you. They got to feel like that you're credible, and that your motives are pure and good, and you're pulling for the betterment of that organization. And when they feel like that, they like you better.
Leading others is it's an art form, and it takes a lot of practice. It not only does it take practice, but it also takes a lot of self-awareness.
Yes, it does.
An assessment to realign yourself with what your organization needs, what your team needs, and what your own individual leadership needs. It's this dynamic matrix that you're constantly juggling, but you want to be intentional with it, and you want to have strategy with it.
That's right. And we go through stages of leadership. We go through the situational leadership. Our leadership will depend on the situation. For example, if you take over an organization where you have a lot of no results, you need a stronger brand of leadership there to come on and to provide more direction and to be a little more authoritative and this kind of thing. Then if you come into organizations that are going great, you can come back to a little bit more of the laissez-faire type of letting people have more input. But your goal is to, even if it's the organization where nothing is happening, you have to use a little more stern leadership. But then your goal is to move from that into the more of the situational type leadership, depending on the situation. But you're right. It requires different kinds.
I love the situational leadership. So, David, you took leadership by the reins, and you chose to not only make it your career, your life, and your impact. it's not an easy path, but one that you've been cultivating. Can you share with us your life story, and if there was a moment in life that inspired this decision that's essentially put you out to now be a subject matter expert, and you've been able to impact not just many people's lives, but different organizations across the nation?
Well, again, when I grew up, again, I was the only one in my family that had a college degree, and I had no examples of good leadership. I mean, as far as leadership in a business arena, when I first started my career, I was not under any kind of outstanding leaders that really moved me to do better. If I had not have had that internal leader concept in me of saying, I can't be responsible because my boss or someone does things this way. I have to be responsible for the way I conduct my own leadership skills. So I didn't have a beacon of experience there. And that's why I got so involved in the leadership training. And I tried to go to as many of the things as I possibly could. And I started listening to these really, really good ones. And when I would do that, I would come back and I would be more invigorated. And I would find myself utilizing some of the things that I had heard that they talked about. And the more I tried those things, the more successful I became in getting people then to buy in to what we were trying to get accomplished. And as that started happening, I found more success with this of trying to go against the grain just a little bit. Because if you don't have any impact, if your value, I tried to increase my value, and I heard many years ago that if you don't increase your value in your organization, you will never have impact. And if you don't have impact, you will have absolutely no control over anything that happens. But the more value you bring, so I spent a lot of years trying to bring value to whatever I was doing in my organization, value that maybe some others weren't doing, value that others were doing, but maybe a little better than that, because we got two choices. We can do something differently, or we can do the same things others do, but only do it better. Those are the two ways I really went into that. But the leadership training that I was exposed to early on was not that great. I'll be honest with you. So I took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and then tried to develop my inner leadership ability and tried to do what the really good ones were doing, trying to not copy what they're doing, but excellence can be duplicated. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If someone's doing something really outstanding, hey, try it. I always say, go ahead and steal it from over there because they stole it from somewhere else. I found over the years, and I tell my graduate students this all the time, that if you bring me what you're doing in your organization that you consider absolutely innovative and unique, 9 times out of 10, I can tell you the old name for it. We've tried it. There are very few ideas new in the leadership business. You can read book after book after book on it, and there's nothing new. There's some different approaches, but there are no new ideas in it. And so you have to kind of take the reins yourself and go ahead and say, hey, I see what works. I'm trying, and whatever's working, stick with it.
Wow. Yeah, no, and I can imagine that wasn't always an easy path for you, because not only were you choosing to do things that people weren't willing to do, you had to really re-innovate yourself constantly as you were facing new situations, new dynamics, constantly evaluating your environment, yourself, and the impact that you wanted to have and the influence that was going to leave. And as you moved forward and continued to have more success within each organization, it grew your own leadership influence and impact.
Yes, it did. And then it made you just want to help more and more people to utilize some of the strategies and the techniques that you use. Again, they vary from people to people. It varies according to personality. I've had some people that were real introverts. They weren't outgoing at all, and I've had them saying, Dr. Lee, I know I can't be successful as a leader. I don't communicate well. I don't. Yes, you can. You don't have to be that. You can have any personality, and you can excel at leadership. You just have to know the arena in which you're operating and how to do that. If you are not good with people, surround yourself with someone who is and work around that. You organize it, you develop it. You don't have to do it all yourself. You just have to know what the platform is out there and how to get things done.
Right.
I see great leaders with that. I see some all the time, and you go, man, going back to Jim Collins' book, one in his earlier books on Good to Great, he mentions that some of the leaders looks like they've come from Mars. I see that. I've seen people, and I say to myself, how in the world are they leading this organization? Because when you talk to them, you get you don't get excited about anything. You just blah, blah, blah. But when you look at it in depth, and I've gone to see something like this, and when you see it in depth, there is a network out there. There is a system. Great leaders have systems. And no matter what your leadership style is, if you've got a great system and you constantly tweak that system, and once you find a system that gets results, work within that system. And that's what some of these people do that you think wouldn't be great leaders. They have developed a system, and that system works for them. And that makes all the difference in the world. That's what I've found so often, again, that they operate from that system.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
I think with all the social media, with everybody wanting quick fixes, when you look at change, they want leaders to change things. But the problem is they want leaders to change things. They want to change them as long as you don't change people. Once you put a face to change, that's when people start kind of backing up just a little bit. This is what it's going to take. But because of the instant fix syndrome that's happening out there, the push to change. But when you start to change, you run into all kind of barriers. Leaders are having a very tough time with that. Of creating the change necessary to turn an organization around. Some systems will allow the flexibility to change personnel, to change this, to change. Some systems won't. And in that situation, you have to work with mostly what you have. And that means undoing a lot of ways people have been doing things, and that takes time. So I think the biggest challenge that the leader today has to face with all the onslaught of again, everything from social media to the demands of our society is having the time and the resources to fix things, because we just don't want to give them time. We just expect it too soon.
What is the biggest risk that you've ever taken within your own leadership?
Well, I think it's probably going out on a limb as a school superintendent and starting an innovative charter alternative school that guaranteed a diploma for everybody. Guaranteed.
Oh, wow.
that when they got that diploma, when they got out of school, if they couldn't pass a basic test to get a job, you come back and we will educate you for free. And we had people in there coming back that were 60 years old learning to read. I'm not saying that they came through the system that didn't learn to read, but I got some external resources to do that. But then I promoted it from the angle that we guarantee you a diploma, that when you get it, you can pass any test to get a job, the basic skills to get a job. And we had adults coming back in our K-12 setting, and I was able to get funding for those older people, just like they were students in the K-12 or P-12 environment. And that was a big risk. Nobody had ever done that. And my board really really were hesitant, but it took a big selling job because the people within our system says, why do you fool with people? We don't need to be worrying about these adults walking around out here. Well, you got this adults walking around that couldn't get a job. They couldn't even pass a little basic elementary test to get a job. So we changed our approach on that, but that was a big risk. And I stepped out on a limb, especially when I told the board that my school board that the money would not be come out of our general fund, and we would not fund that with local dollars. Now I was in a time crunch of finding out how I could get some money. So I went on a little spree to industry, and the industry started kicking in donations, and then I was able to get enough money to get the school going and that kind of thing. But it was probably my biggest risk.
Wow, risk with a huge impact.
Yeah, trying something new that someone else hasn't done is always scary. And you get support once it's going. You got a lot of people telling you great once it gets going, but it was the same people that told you it's not going to work when you were trying to do it.
As we wrap up our interview, our audience enjoys having a challenge from our guest experts based on our conversation. What challenge would you leave our audience with when it comes to their own self-leadership or being just loving what they do?
My challenge to you is realize that you have the ability to do the things that you're wanting to do, and it's an inside job with you. You're going to hear that. And I go back to my little book, Run from the Nuts. I realized a long time ago to run from people who don't share your ideas and your strategy. And naturally, you need input from those kind of people. But people who are always the naysayers, people who always pull you down, just run from those people in your career and be around people that build you up. Those people that, I'm not talking about the people that always agree with you. I'm talking about people who add value to your life and your career. Spend your time with these folks, because they will give you the energy and the drive to accomplish things that others have accomplished. The others will convince you that you've got to stay in the ocean of sameness. You got to keep doing, because it's easy to do what everyone else does. But I can tell you, with the leader of the future, that the old deal, I'm just going to do like everyone else is doing, that's not going to work for you, because our society, we're changing so much. It's going to require a different skill set. But my advice is to be around people that build you up and that add value to you. And the more people like that you have in your inner circle, the greater accomplishments you'll be able to make.
So how can our listeners connect with you?
They can connect with me. They can check my email my website at davidleemotivation.com. Or they can email me if they would like to. I'd love to talk with you about it at david.e.lee, L-E-E, at usm.edu. Please email me if you have any questions and would like some further dialogue with this.
There you have it, and I'll be sure to leave that in the show notes. To our listeners, the ball is in your court. I challenge you to take action, continue the difficult conversations around evolving your own leadership, and reach out to Dr. David Lee to partner with your organization and your teams. You are listening to Flipping the Script, Leadership Behind the Scenes. We'll see you on our next episode. Thank you so much, Dr. David Lee.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
If you found even the smallest nugget of wisdom in this episode, share it with a friend and your friend will thank you. Let's continue the conversation with like-minded leaders and join us on Facebook at Go Flip the Script. Until next time, I challenge you to incorporate what you learned today to evolve your leadership impact.